Hey everybody, welcome back. Now we're going to go over some great communication tips, and here's your very first one. And this is kind of an overriding one that you want to be looking at constantly as you're presenting, which is what communication is when you're presenting to somebody. You want to look at, is it helping or is it hurting? Think of it this way. I'm trying to make the sale. Is it getting me closer to closing the sale or farther away? I want to connect with somebody. Is it creating connection or disconnection? I want to keep people interested. Is it creating interest or lack of interest, like this poor guy nose down on the table? Notice which one you're doing. By getting this feedback, this will help you stay on track, hit the right spot, and actually move in the direction you're trying to move in. Great tip. Now, here's a little piece of reality. People are much more interested, much more interested in what they have to say than what you have to say. People are always going to be more excited about talking in a conversation than listening in a conversation. We're going to talk a little bit later on about conversational generosity and how that works, and this will make more and more sense to you as you go on. But a lot of people think conversation is about being a great talker. A lot of times it's about being a great listener and being as interested, sometimes if you want to create excitement, being more interested in what the other person has to say than what they're saying. That will create high likability with the person, help you connect with them, and ultimately make the sale. Whatever you're trying to sell, someone on an idea, a product, a concept, maybe even on helping themselves. Let's dive a little deeper into this. Most people actually aren't communicating. They're just taking turns talking. People are literally waiting for you to take a breath so they can jump in and say the next brilliant thing that they thought of. Here's how a typical conversation goes. You say something. It sparks an idea in the person that you're talking to. They start sub-vocalizing, which is internal self-talk, and they go blah, 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 what they thought about your very first idea. Now, everything you say after the first idea, they pretty much missed. Then they get to talk, and they say, this is great. I'm going to tell this person something, and they're going to get all this information. Then they say something, and the first thing that they say triggers something in you. You start thinking about it, and you're saying blah, 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 blah in the back of your mind, thinking about how brilliant you are, about going over what they had just said, and you miss the next 15 things that they say because you're talking in your own head. And this cycle repeats and repeats and repeats. So, what we want to do is make sure that when we're talking with somebody, we're getting good communication across. And one way that you can do that is to interrupt them with a question. Ask them a question about what you're talking about. That will get them out of their head and focus back on what you're talking about. So I'll say, hey, there was one time when I was in such and such a situation, blah, 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 blah. And I'll say, have you ever been in a situation like that? And I give them a quick minute to respond. But it stops the talking in their head. And then I go on to my next point. What I really want to tell you about is blah, 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 blah. Is that something that you feel you could use? See how the question stops the self-talk? Whatever blah, 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 blah they were doing in their mind, they have to stop and focus and answer the question. So, make sure that when you're talking to somebody, that they're actually listening. They're not glazed over. And when they're talking, I want you actually listening to what they're saying, not going with this sub-vocalization talk in your own mind. Does that make sense? Listen to what they say. You can think about it for days after. Don't be spending too much time thinking about it while they're talking about it, except to analyze what are their values, what are their beliefs, and what's important to them. That's all the sub-vocalization you should be doing. Now, when you're generous in letting somebody talk, they'll almost talk themselves out, and then they're more likely to listen to you and not be so hyper to jump in when you take a breath and say something.